two, one. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Delusions of Grandeur. I'm your host, David Streggy, and today we are going to go up on House on Haunted Hill and enjoy a birthday party with a certain someone. Uh, Meanwhile, while the party guests are getting ready, we are going to be talking about tonight's or today's film that I had Boris, who comes all the way from Croatia.
Hi.
I tasked him to watch this horrifying horror film from 1959, and it is directed by none other than William Castle, written by Rob White, and it is called House on Haunted Hill. Let me just say what IMDb says about this film.
Okay.
Um, a millionaire offers $10,000 to five people who agree to be locked in a large, spooky rented house overnight with him and his wife. So,
Hmm.
first impressions. Why don't you
Well,
tell me what you thought about this film? Was this your first time?
yes, it was my first time, and I have to say there were quite several things I actually found somewhat confusing about this movie. It felt like there were several subplots that at least I personally got the impression they were unfinished, like there was something more to the story to tell, but they didn't end up doing it.
It could have
But
gone several different ways. This is
yeah,
actually one of my favorite films, to be honest, because I mean, you do not get a beginning like that to start out with. I mean, you get the evil laughs and the ghosts and the screams, and then all of a
uh,
sudden, the head of two people um,
uh,
shows up and tells you exactly what's going to happen. Well, kind of what happens on this evening that Frederick Lawrence has put together. And to be honest, ladies and gentlemen, William Castle cast Vincent Price in the role of Frederick Lawrence, and Price is a phenomenal actor. He His voice is very particular in anything. I mean, his voice can be even what was it? Oh, did you know that Vincent Price's voice was actually during Jackson's Thriller? One of the voices that they used.
wow, no, I didn't know that. Actually, I have that song on my Halloween playlist, but no, I didn't know this.
Yeah, when it goes into that spooky voice or whatnot during the song, that's his voice.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
But yeah, so what happens here is you get this very beginning. You get the head of Elijah Cook's head here, showing up. uh, but Elijah Cook Jr. Plays Watson Pritchard, and he starts it off very creepily. Um, the ghosts are watching tonight, restless, hungry. My name is
Uh,
Walter Pritchard, and you are about to spend the night in the only true haunted house in the world.
yeah, which is funny because in the end, if I understood correctly, we didn't even get to know if the house is really haunted or not, right?
Well, you get the assumption that it could be, and there are some things that happen, like, well, let's get into this. So after Walter Pritchett says that the last time he spent in this house, um, evidently 7 people were murdered in it, and he was the only one who survived. Uh, um,
Uh,
and then we hear an introduction by Frederick Lawrence himself, which just so happens to be the big ass head of Vincent Price, uh, telling us that he has invited us to a birthday party, his wife's birthday party to be exact. And he's invited 5 people, and he kind of tells us a little bit about each person. And each person arrives in none other than a hearse.
wow, yeah, yeah.
Each of them show up to the house. What do you think of each character?
Well, actually, that beginning with a few people who don't know each other being invited by a mysterious host, it somewhat reminded me of some of the previous movies we discussed. And then there were none, and what was the other one called? The Ninth Guest, yeah. Uh, yeah, for a moment I got the impression it was going to be somewhat like that, but then it turned out this was a different thing after all. When we did see the host in this one, so. But yeah, about the characters. Well, like in some other movies, we didn't get to find out about each of them equally much. Like, for
Well,
example,
we've got Lance Schroeder, who apparently has something to do with evidently Frederick Lawrence. We've got Dr. David Trent, who evidently is a doctor of some sort. We got Nora Manning, who evidently works for Mr. Lawrence, and she's the one that apparently, and this is according to Frederick Lawrence, she's the one who needs the money the most. So, I mean, he made her sound like she's really desperate for money. And we got Watson Pritchard, who, even though he's scared of the home and has this doom and gloom about him, he shows up. And we've got Ruth Bridgers, who I don't know what she. I think she's a society paperist, a newspaperist, but she's got bills of her own. So she ends up showing up, and we got Mr. Slide, Mrs. Slides, Jonas, and of course the skeleton. So,
yeah.
what do you think about Lance Schroeder as a character?
Well, he was one we got to uh, got to know the best, I think. I liked his character because he was one of the bravest ones, taking initiative in solving the mystery and finding the killer.
Oh yeah, um, Richard Long. He played a couple of characters on the original Twilight Zone series. He played Jared Barkley in something called The Big Valley. He played Noah Longstreet in a film called The Stranger, which, believe it or not, I do have.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
I don't know whether that has anything thing to do with a house or whatnot, but it does have Orson Welles, and it was directed by Orson Welles in it. So, but yeah, that's some of his background. Oh, he was on an episode of This Is a Thriller.
Uh,
Uh, that was Boris Karloff's series, similar to Twilight Zone.
oh, cool.
So, but in any case, what did we think of our scream queen, Nora Manning?
Well, she was pretty good at screaming. Yeah, I actually liked her character, and she was also pretty, I must admit.
Yeah, she was very pretty. I liked her look. I liked her
Yeah.
look. So, what did we think about Frederick Lauren?
Phew. Well, he was a pretty mysterious character, and throughout a longer part of the story, I actually thought he would be a villain, and I kind of disliked him at the beginning because of how he treated his wife, but then, well,
She treated him
spoiler
the same
alert.
way back, and you heard that it's very possible that she almost poisoned him.
Uh, yeah, and in the end, if I understood correctly, that assumption was apparently true, right?
Well, she tried to kill him. So, well, and we'll get to that.
Mm.
Um, so, ladies and gentlemen, just so that you know, we'll probably spoil the shit out of this movie.
Yeah.
So, once the guest gets in, several things happen. I mean, you have you have the chandelier that pretty much doesn't it drop
Oh, oh, yeah, yeah, that
on the very
happened.
beginning. In
Y-
the very beginning, Lance ends up having to save Nora Manning from the chandelier dropping.
Yeah, yeah. That part and their further interaction kind of got me hoping there would be some romance developing between them, but then we didn't end up seeing much of that, did we?
No, we did not. It ended up being just kind of a scare and a scare-a-thon in a sense.
Yeah.
So once the guests get inside the house, they are they are shown their rooms, and then they are invited down to evidently a living area of some sort, and they are told exactly what they are to expect. If they are to spend the night in the house, apparently there may be some ghosts and ghouls, but if each of them spends the night in the house, each of them gets $10,000. And to throw in some party favors, he gives them some weapons uh, in and there are weapons in seven tiny coffins.
Uh, yeah, that was an interesting detail.
What did you think about Annabelle Lawrence?
Whew. Well, uh, the actress is very good looking, I have to say that, and she also had pretty nice looking outfits. And as a character, well, there was a really good plot twist about her, which I really didn't expect. uh, at first, I liked her, but then I was pretty surprised when it turned out she was actually the villain in all this.
One of the villains.
Uh, yeah, the other one was even more unexpected.
Oh, yeah. And Annabelle Lawrence, she was played by Carol Omart. She lived from about 1927 to 2002. That's actually quite some time. Um, and she was, let's see, I'm looking. She was in a movie called The Scarlet Hour, The Wild Party, in a movie called Born Reckless. Uh, that was before she was in House on Haunted Hill. Um, Seems like she was in various episodes of different television series throughout. She was in a couple episodes of Bat Masterson, um, one episode of Tombstone Territory, a couple of Western shows, Tales of Wells Fargo, another Western series, Route 66, a Perry Mason episode, Michael Shane TV series, 77 Sunset Strip, uh, ah, and I guess she was in Spider Baby. Jack Hill's Spider Baby later on. I guess I'll have to rewatch that one of these days. I have it somewhere. That was a film from 1967. So,
Wow.
and I guess the last film that she was in was called The Spectre of Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh, cool.
So, but other than that, I mean, me, I like all of the characters in their own way. You've got Elijah Cook, a junior, who has that doom and gloom. He's always saying something to offset everyone.
Yeah, if
To
I
make
remember,
he really believes in the ghosts in the house.
yeah, if I remember correctly, one of the seven people who were murdered earlier was his brother, right?
Like this one, about the guns that they were given. These are no good against the dead, only the
Oh,
living.
yeah, yeah, which is interesting because in the end it turns out the living were actually the enemies here.
the the thing about this movie, it's definitely quotable. Um, so quotable, it's almost laughable. Uh, but I mean, Frederick Lauren, he says, "Don't stay up thinking of ways to get rid of me. It makes wrinkles."
Yeah,
Or, "Don't let the ghosts and the ghouls disturb you, love, darling. The only ghoul in the house is you."
uh,
Or Walter Pritchett saying, "Only the ghosts in this house are glad we're here." Who would want to haunt me? I would say any self-respecting male ghost.
yeah, there were many funny moments in the movie, but I have to say that second time the ghost of this old lady appeared, really startled me. Like, not the first time when she was emerging from the dark, but the second time. Uh, mm, yeah.
Do you remember the fun we had when you poisoned me? Something great, the doctor said. Yes, arsenic on the rocks. Annabelle, you'd do it again if you thought you'd get away with it, wouldn't you? Why do you always do that? It spoils the champagne. It might explode. Never does. Can you guarantee that? That isn't
oh yeah.
make a good headline. Playboy kills wife and champagne with champagne cork.
Yeah, yeah, that was an interesting moment too.
Would you adore me as much as if I were poor? No. All you want to be is a lovely widow. Or, of course, the ending lines. They're coming for me now, and then they'll come for you.
Uh, oh yeah, that was Watson who said that, right?
Yep, Watson Pritchard.
Mm.
But of course, then of course he also says this is what she used on my brother and her sister. Hacked them to pieces. We found parts of their bodies all over the house, in places you wouldn't think. A funny
Uh,
thing is the heads have never been found. Hands and feet and things like that, but no heads.
uh, yeah, uh, and uh, it was also a pretty shocking moment when Nora found the head.
Oh yeah, I think
Uh,
the first time was inside a case, and then the next
yeah,
time was actually inside of the closet.
yeah, I think it was something like that.
And then, of course, there was the blood that dripped onto Ruth from the ceiling, not once, but twice.
Oh, yeah, and each time it fell on Ruth's head, but eventually there wasn't anything about that, right? Uh, uh,
Only two, her husband and her sister. Nobody else was here. So there are two loose heads just floating around here someplace. You can hear them at night. They whisper to each other and then cry. Like I said, Watson Pritchard had that doom and gloom. Like he was always saying something to spook the shit out of them.
Indeed.
Wasn't there a man who threw his wife into a vine vat or something? That was in the cellar. Been a murder almost everywhere in this house.
Yeah, the cellar scenes were pretty good as well.
Oh yeah. So apparently, this is what happened. They were doing a tour of the home, and when they went to the cellar, Lance and um, Nora stayed behind, and then the lights started to go out. Or actually, wasn't it Nora that stayed behind? Or Lance was actually looking. Um, he went to look inside one of the rooms.
Was that when the door closed and got locked?
Yeah,
Uh,
and she was down there alone, and then she saw the shadowy thing come out, and then I think it was later she was in the room with Lance, or in the room, and Lance was got his head hit, and
oh,
we saw
yeah.
the floating specter.
uh, Indeed, I think that was the moment which I mentioned had startled me. That was pretty well done.
That part always startled me. But then I realized the second time that she was just being slid around on wheels. You could tell that, but when you see it for the first time, this whole entire film, it has that creep factor that creeps you the fuck out. It's got that eeriness about it, that doom and gloom, and it doesn't leave you until even after the film. It leaves its after effect on you. To me.
Kind of, yeah.
Me, I never looked at another horror film the same way again after I watched this, and it became my favorite film because I mean, it's even eerie to watch that scene when she fucking shows up. That old woman, that old crone. Because she's creepy to look at, you know. I mean, it's not exactly the first thing you expect in the dark in the basement, and when that music goes every time those lights go out, and you hear the you know, the shutting of the doors. It's got that creepy effect, and it works. You know, I mean, yeah, you can see the string on the skeleton, but it's
But
still got an eerie effect, and it creeps me the fuck out.
yeah, actually, about the skeleton, for a moment when it appeared, my first impression was that it didn't look very realistic. But then I thought it's an old movie. It's still pretty good regarding the time when it was made. But then it turned out it actually probably was a fake skeleton since it was controlled by Frederick.
Well, to be honest, you were supposed to think that it was her, because when the doctor came down into the cellar and was looking for Annabelle, she had already screened herself into the acid.
Yeah, yeah. But
Which that was
wait,
kind of a
wasn't
thing to me, because when they threw the rat in the acid or the vat, um, to show that anything that would be disintegrated if you threw it in there, you know,
yeah.
that was an interesting moment. And you saw the skeleton of the rat underneath it float to the surface.
Uh, yeah, that scene was pretty much announcing that someone was going to end up being thrown down there.
And then, of course, there was the scaring of Miss Nora. Even Frederick Lawrence was actually willing to get try to see if there was some way to get her out of there, because he was even worried about, you know, her mental state. She just kept getting scared. um, I mean, there was a moment where one of the caretakers was trying to get her to come with him, but he ended up scaring her. I think she was the one who found Annabelle hanging.
I think it was her, yeah.
She also found the head, and nobody believed her. And she also experienced that moment where that rope just seemed to come through the wall, wrap around her legs, and then pull right back out, all mysteriously.
Huh.
I don't think that part was entirely all part of the scare factor. I almost feel like that part was like a ghostly part. Like, I mean, you didn't see the rope. I mean, you didn't see the rope entirely have a string or anything, a thing. That rope looked like it was really wrapping around her, didn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I was about to say that really looked like Nora was being attacked by a ghost. I mean, then it turned out it was the real Annabelle, but I still wonder how it's possible for her to be controlling the opposite end of the rope
Well,
and
I know you
waiting.
can't entirely explain away the droplets of blood from the ceiling.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that too.
I'm not sure, but when the piano started to go on its own,
Uh, yeah, that wasn't explained either.
uh,
And uh,
what else wasn't explainable? I'm not sure how explainable the head was in the closet. Uh, I know how explainable it might have been to have it show up in the case because I think they were trying to scare
yes.
her. But what did you think about the doctor?
Phew. Well, like I said, I was really surprised to find out he was the bad guy here. Like before that, all we knew was he was a psychiatrist and he didn't believe in ghosts and so on. He kind of had a very realistic and scientific approach to this mystery and. Since it turned out the characters in this movie were not said to all have some secrets from their past, like in And Then There Were None or in The Ninth Guest. Uh, I actually didn't expect any of the guests here to have any dark secret, but then yeah, this was really surprising when we found out he actually knew Annabelle from earlier and had an affair with her. It was a really good plot twist.
Okay, so evidently these are some goofs that I guess I may or may not have known about this film, but here's an anachronism. The house is supposed to have been built in the 1950s, and the interiors are typical Victorian era mansion sets, but exteriors of a house designed in the 1920s by Lloyd Wright, which still looked very modern when this film was made more than 20 years later. Evidently, these are some things that have stuff to do with continuity. Uh,
Mm.
Lance locks his door from the inside with a deadbolt after the doctor calls everybody to the meeting and leaves through Nora's door. When they return from the meeting, he opens his own unlocked door from the outside.
Huh. Wow, I didn't notice that.
Neither did I. When Annabelle gives Frederick her gun, he places it in the mini coffin and closes the coffin. However, in one of the next shots, we see that all coffins are open.
Ooh, yeah, I didn't see that either.
In the living room, they discuss that it's impossible for Annabelle to have hanged herself because there was not anything for her to get up onto to jump. However, minutes earlier, when we see the body hanging, There is clearly a newel post on one side of the hanging body and a handrail on the other, both within jumping distance.
Huh.
In the opening scene, when Frederick Lauren introduces each of the party guests, the back window of each person's funeral car is blacked out with a dark cloth. But in all the long shots showing the procession of cars driving slowly along the road, the back window of all the cars are clearly transparent, with nothing blocking the view through the glass.
Wow, someone really analyzed this movie.
Yeah, tell me about it. The Cadillac funeral cars in procession at the beginning of the film are various model years. In the next scene, when they pull up in front of the house, they are all the same year.
Huh.
Okay, that's different. After Lance pulls Nora out of the way of the falling chandelier, his arm alternates back and forth from being around her shoulders to being around her waist.
Huh.
When
Wow.
Frederick is in the bedroom with Annabelle, he shakes a bottle of champagne and then points the bottle at her with the foil and cork intact. In the next scene, Frederick stops pointing the champagne bottle at her and removes the cork. The foil has already been removed.
Huh. Wow.
When Lance and Nora go back to the cellar after Lance was hit, they each entered closets next to each other, approximately 6 feet apart. They could hear each other quite clearly when Nora saw the ghost and began to scream. From the
Hmm.
time she began to scream, the ghost had time to stand still long enough to make Nora hysterical and then slowly float out the door before Lance made it to her without seeing anything.
Huh.
When
Hmm.
Frederick is in the bedroom with Annabelle, he shakes a bottle of champagne and then. Oh, okay. At the end of the movie, when Vincent Price and Carol Omar are in the cellar, the acid around the vat appears and disappears.
Mm. Wow. Yeah, well, this was the first time I watched this movie, so unfortunately, I cannot say I noticed any of that on my own.
Neither did I. So I'm just at the beginning of the movie, at about 4.5 minutes, as the guests arrive, they walk through the gates, which are open for them. They pass through the gates, which are still open. With no one behind them, the next clip shows the gates already closed behind them. But then again, the house is haunted. So evidently crew or equipment visible. After Nora throws everyone out of her room and the others are talking in the hall, someone's hand comes into the shot in the lower left corner of the screen.
Ooh.
Oh, I didn't notice that one.
I
Factual
didn't either, although, yes.
factual errors. So the skeletons dissolving by the acid should not be shown as held together in one piece the way it is seen, as the acid should have melted the tendons and joints that hold bones together, thus resulting in a pile of loose bones.
Ooh. Yeah, that's a good point.
When Dr. Trent removes Annabelle's hanging harness, it is just a leather bustier. A real hanging harness would have some sort of hook or hooks to transfer the pressure from the neck to the shoulders. Such a harness was used by Darto. Burt Lancaster in The Flame and the Arrow.
Oh, wow.
Pritchard says acid destroys everything with hair and flesh, just leaves the bones. As he proceeds to demonstrate with the vat of acid turning a dead rat into a skeleton in seconds. In fact, acid takes days to dissolve hair and flesh, and is just as good at dissolving bones. Lye, on the other hand, will dissolve hair and flesh quickly, especially if heated, and will not dissolve bones.
Oh, that's interesting.
Okay, this was incorrectly regarded as a goof. Frederick Lauren announces at the start of the challenge that if any of the contestants dies, the deceased's heirs will get his or her $10,000. Later, he says that if any of the 5 contestant dies, the total 50,000 will be split evenly amongst the survivors. However, the initial statement is spoken directly to the film's audience, is not part of the actual plot line, and therefore does not really contradict the terms subsequently described to the genuine characters.
Oh, yeah.
A plot hole. The rope that comes floating through the window and wraps around Nora's feet and then unwraps itself and goes out the window again. In real life, how would you do all that? You can't reverse film in real life. And if there was a string attached, wouldn't Nora see or feel it?
Um, yeah.
Okay,
That's what I was
reveal,
wondering as well.
revealing mistakes. Mr. Lauren shakes an unopened bottle of champagne and points it menacingly at his wife. Yet when the bottle is opened, there is no effervescent fountain, nor bubbles visible in their glasses when poured.
Hmm.
After
Mm.
Nora brings everyone to the cellar, when Lance gets locked in the room, you see Mr. Lauren light a candle when he goes to enter, but the room itself lights up before he even enters the room.
Oh,
When using candles in the rooms in the basement, the candlelight is obviously a spotlight, as the shadows of the candle and silhouette of the person are displayed on the wall, when all there should be is candlelight.
interesting.
Lance leaves Nora alone in her room with strict instruction not to let anyone else in while he's gone. Suddenly, every candle light snuffs out just before the rope comes through the open window. There were obviously spot or hidden surface lights, as a room full of lit candles and a candle chandelier do not simply blow out without a sudden blinding gush of wind.
Wow.
When Frederick demonstrates firing the pistol, he fires is mere inches from Annabelle's left ear, but she shows no reaction to that effect, even though, at a minimum, the extremely loud noise should have hurt it.
Oh, oh, wow. Yeah, I wasn't thinking about that either.
Okay, here are a few more plot holes, and then let's see. The psychiatrist drags Mr. Lauren's body toward the vat of acid, intending to dump it in. Why, when they have already set up Nora to be their patsy, and there's no need to get rid of the body?
Huh, huh.
Okay.
Yeah, good question.
Or Annabelle complains that her husband invited all the guests and they're strangers. but the psychiatrist is secretly her lover and will help her to murder him during the party. So doesn't she find it odd that her husband invited him? She obviously didn't suggest that he do so.
Well, actually, yeah, I did wonder about that.
It is established that no one can get out of the house due to the locked metal door and bars on all the windows. Yet Annabelle somehow gets outside so she can pretend to be a ghost outside Nora's window.
Huh, huh.
After the guests have locked themselves in their rooms, Nora emerges, goes to the end of the hall, and discovers Annabelle swinging from a noose. Nora screams. She backs into a corner and confronted with a monster hand and screams again. In the next scene, the door locks on Mr. Lauren's door and asks him if he heard anything strange. So which Mr. Lauren to which Mr. Lauren replies that he thought he heard footsteps. How did no one hear
The
Nora screaming?
screams. Yeah, 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 actually, I noticed that one. Yeah, I remember he mentioned hearing footsteps and what else was it? Gunshots, I think. Was it that? And I was like, and what about the screaming?
If the caretakers are real people, how can they stand in the doorway without saying a word and suddenly disappear? Also, how does the wife float in midair, glide around the cellar, and not be seen by Lance when she passes through the doorway to the next room where he is waiting? She doesn't react to a blood curdling scream right next to her. Is she deaf as well as blind? If she is blind, how does she head straight for and cleanly through that doorway?
Huh, huh. Yeah.
So definitely some stuff going on there. Okay, I admit there are a lot of plot errors and whatnot, things that don't connect. There are definitely errors in this film, and I enjoy every minute of it. So
Yeah, if
I
you
know that this isn't a perfect film, but it wasn't meant to be a perfect film. It was meant to just have a scare factor and to make you think. And to me, if you start noticing all of these things, then you have too much time on your hands, my friends. Just enjoy the fucking movie. I mean, that's that's my advice to you guys. I mean, if you've never seen this movie before, watch it, enjoy it. Don't pick a movie apart. Watch it.
Yeah, that's true. Although I must say, if you are a huge fan of a movie and you have watched it like 5 or 6 times and you never get bored of it, then eventually you start noticing some things like this, whether you're trying or not. It has
Or if you
happened to
hate,
me.
or if you hate a film so much, if you hate a film, you're going to emotions cause you to want to sit and notice all of these things. Although
Well,
I will have to watch this movie over again just to see some of those plot points and some of those mistakes that supposedly happen and whatnot. Like I'd like to see the part where the hand you can see the hand in the corner. That part I'd like to see.
oh yeah, if you find it, please let me know. I'd like to check it too.
I mean, that's the only reason why I read most of those because I had not. And well, let's see. I do know that this actually did use a real mansion uh, that was built by Frank Lloyd Wright. Let's see, the Enos House, and the Enos House is actually in Los Angeles, California. It's on 2607 Glendower Avenue, Los Feliz, Los Angeles, California. So
Oh,
that was the view of the outside, exterior views of the house only. So it looked like a pueblo looking like structure. It
yeah,
wasn't your typical house, that's for sure.
yeah. It did look unusual on the outside. Oh, and on the inside too, but I really liked its interior.
Oh yeah. What did you think of Elijah Cook's character? I mean, I somewhat talked about his gloom and doom character ness, but what did you think about Walter Pritchett?
Uh, well, like I said before, I felt like there were some things in this movie that were some subplots that were somewhat that were introduced, but then they didn't go much further with them, and I think this is actually one of them because he was the one talking about real ghosts and so on, and he did say some things that indicated there really were some ghosts in the house, but then eventually we didn't see them, and we didn't find out much about what he spoke about.
Well, according to him, there was at least a murder in every single room. So, to me, if that house wasn't haunted, it should have
Yeah, and he also mentioned something about. Did he say there were four men and three women among the previous victims who were?
been. Correct. And there were four men and three women at the party.
Yeah. I also expected something to happen about that, but then nothing happened.
Yeah, that's kind of what we were kind of expecting. We were expecting some murder, but there wasn't necessarily any murders going on. Just hauntings and a murder subplot,
uh,
or
yeah.
a prank haunting. That's what I would call it. A prank like haunting.
Uh,
Yet, I do believe that there was a spiritual atmosphere that was amongst it, because I do believe that some of the things that happened were um, were spiritual, or had something to do with spirits. It can't all have been just happenstance and them just trying to scare Nora. Some of it cannot be explained away, you know, not quite. There's just something about some of the shit that went on that can't entirely be faulted on either the doctor or Annabelle or Vincent Price himself. Now, the chandelier, that was actually, I think, Frederick Lawrence's fault, because we, I do believe that um, there was something that Lance found upstairs when there had to have been where you heard like noises, like foot, like uh, if he stuck his foot down and pressed down on it a couple of moments, the chandelier would move or something like
Oh,
that. Or at least I thought there was. I don't know.
uh, I can't remember right now. I would have to check that scene again.
Yeah, because all of a sudden, Frederick Lawrence appeared right after that chandelier scene. So, of
Oh, yeah, good point.
course, right after words, Mr. Doom and Gloom said something about the ghosts are already starting.
Yeah.
But in any case, um, did you have anything? What was your favorite scene? If you had to take one from this particular film.
Phew. Well, that's an interesting question. At first, I I'm sorry.
Not a problem.
Uh, I liked the scene when we found out that Annabelle was alive after all. That was surprising. And before I knew she was the villain, I was kind of glad that she had survived somehow. But then we found out the truth, which was pretty surprising. And the final encounter in the basement was. The most intriguing part, of course.
Yeah, I felt like her screaming was actually kind of hokey in a sense because I don't think she was used to screaming, and her voice was really low. So it was more like her going ah ah ah. You know, I expected a louder scream, more like Nora's. You know,
Yeah.
coming from her, but she was more like ah, ah, backing up into the fucking vat, and it was almost comical to tell you the truth because you actually wanted her to die in a sense because you find out that she's cheating on her husband first of all,
Well, at the end, yeah.
and she was trying to kill herself to get out of a marriage. Why didn't she just leave? You know, I'm sure that Vincent Price instead of or Frederick Lawrence, maybe he might have actually been able to let her go. You know, as a woman, let her go from the marriage. Just tell him the fucking truth. You know, tell him that you don't love him. Tell him that you're done with the marriage. You know, don't just enact some kind of murder on the fucker. You know.
Uh, yeah, was it even explained why she wanted to kill him? I didn't. Uh, I can't remember now.
Well, apparently she had already tried to kill him because of that food poisoning incident. So,
Oh, yeah.
or at least that's what he thought.
Yeah, but did we ever get to find out why?
Probably because she just wants out of the marriage, even though he seems to think that she wants his money.
Oh, well, that would
If
make
she only
sense.
wanted his money, then why was she? Why was she boinking the doctor dude? You know. So,
Yeah, interesting questions.
but
Someone should add that to the plot holes.
I would have to say that my favorite part is when Nora is left alone in the basement and or right when Lance's head gets hit on, and then she just sees the specter of that blind woman float past her and out the door.
Oh
That
yeah.
part is my favorite scene, and it's
Well,
because it scares the bejesus out of me.
yeah, it definitely
I
is
mean,
a
it may not
scary
hold as
scene.
much magic as the first moment, but it certainly still has an eerie feel to it, even though I know now that she's obviously being glided in on some wheeled effort thing or whatnot instead of floating. But at
Yeah.
first, I thought that she was floating, and I couldn't imagine how the fuck they did it. But I mean, growing up, you kind of have to wonder at things.
Yeah.
In any case, um, is there anything else that you think that we haven't covered in this film?
Oh, I'm not sure. I think I did want to mention something, but now I forgot.
Well, the music is composed by Von Dexter, and apparently he is the composer behind the original 13 Ghosts, Mr. Sardonicus, and a TV series called Dangerous Assignment. Um, apparently, the music behind Scream for Your Lives, William Castle and the Tingler video documentary sort. And evidently 13 Ghosts, The Magic of Illusion O, and Taking the Punishment Pole. That's the punishment pole. See, William Castle was very much an elaborate entertainer, and he was so much so that he would be one of those um, producers and directors who would have the theaters attach like buzzers to your seats, and he'd press buzzers, and your whole entire seat would shake like at
Oh,
specific moments or shit like that. Well, he would involve the audience a little bit more in the fear factor of some of his films, and in Mr. Sardonicus' case, you decided the fate of Mr. Sardonicus towards the end of the
oh,
movie. You were actually given these punishment poles, and at the beginning of the theater, and you would hold them up on sticks. Whether you thumbs up or thumbs down, whether he got the punishment or he didn't get the punishment, and no matter what,
wow.
he got the punishment.
Oh my.
But he would do this elaborate thing. He'd actually you'd actually see a segment of William Castle in the middle of the program, and he would be like, "Do you have your punishment poles? Well, let me see them, ladies and gentlemen. You in the back, hold yours up. All right. You in the middle, hold yours up. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you have chosen the punishment." To
Wow.
continue, and then they continued with the film. But that was just how he was. He was an entertainer. He got the audience more involved with the film, and that to me is a showman, a great showman, someone who can involve their viewer with the film and have them invest in it, but also be able to be more involved in it too. so that you're actually part of the film in a sense.
Indeed.
So it was entertaining to hear about this man. That's why he's one of my favorite directors, because he would do something, some of these things, and he'd do something different for each film. So, in any case, let us. Okay, I said my favorite scene. Okay, I think that's everything. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to our babbling about this film.
Yeah,
This
thank
happens to
you.
be one of my favorite films, and this is like the third time I have discussed this film on either this channel or my channel, because I've reviewed it. I've discussed it with my group, but now I've discussed it with my friend Boris here, and I'm glad that I was able to show it to him, because
Oh,
he'd never
thank
seen
you.
it before, and I think he should have been subjected to murder.
Oh my.
I'm sorry, I don't have $10,000 to give you, but you survived tonight. So, in any case, ladies and gentlemen, at least give this film at least a one-time view. I mean, it's a relatively different film than its remake. Because it is black and white, and I know there are some people who hate black and white, but you know what? Fuck you. So,
Uh, well, actually, it's an interesting thing you mentioned that because I was about to say if you are interested in the movie, but if you don't like black and white movies, I actually found a colored version of this movie on YouTube, so you can check that one out if you like.
yes, it is in fact in color. It came into Technicolor sometime later, but it was originally filmed in black and white, and I love it in black and white. I
Mm.
actually will not watch it in color myself, because I prefer black and white when it comes to this movie. It just looks all funky when I see it in color. It's like, what the fuck is this? This isn't House on Haunted Hill. I mean, this isn't creepy at all. This is just like turning an episode of Mister Rogers into a colored version. You know? Oh wait, Mister Rogers is in color, but guess what? He started out in black and white. So, but in any case, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Hopefully,
Yeah,
you enjoyed our preamblings on this film. I enjoyed it. I'm sure that Mr. Boris here enjoyed it, and we thank
I
you for
did.
listening. Have a great day, evening, or morning, wherever you are. And please, for all reasons, spend a night in a haunted house. You never know. They may be
Yeah,
coming for you.
yeah, you can get $10,000 for it.
Hey, $10,000 went a long way back then. You have no idea. Night, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, let us know down in the comments what you thought of this film. Thank you, and have a great day, evening, or morning, wherever you are. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.